Hey, welcome to the AfterWord. Thank you for listening.
Our one listener still.
No, we're up to 2. Last week we determined it was 2.
We've doubled.
We've doubled.
Percentage-wise, it's really good.
Oh, if we keep doubling, by like 3 weeks from now, we're going to be at 8.
At least.
Don't check the math on that.
But you
Don't
also
check the
need
math
to
on that.
consider that we've doubled over the last
Year.
Yeah.
We're on a slow trajectory.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
That joke's never going to get old, I don't think.
No.
I'm going to keep making that joke.
Yeah.
I am Eric Reeves, joined by Vince Black, Kirsten Black. Vince is a pastor elder of the Town Church. I'm a pastor elder of the Town Church. Kirsten is married to Vince and has some ministry experience as well. And voices, hopefully this doesn't sound, I don't know, like I don't want to sound, but I think voices the female perspective really well.
Yep.
Does that sound chauvinistic or anything?
I don't think so. I appreciate that. I mean, you and I had some conversations early on, and I just encouraged you to have a female on the show every week because
you wanted your voice to be
I
heard.
wanted my role. No, I didn't. That was not my goal. But my goal was to say, like, more than half of the members in our church are women, and more than half of the attenders are women. And women think and process things in extremely different ways than men do.
Yeah.
And so sometimes hearing the same thing from a different perspective brings understanding that wasn't there beforehand. And so I think it serves our people well to have a woman on the podcast just so that we can be attentive to different ways of processing and thinking.
We would agree. Yep.
So our processing and thinking on the afterword is about the passage that was just preached. And so we're going to be looking at taking oaths and trustworthiness today out of Matthew 5. But before we do that, I want to start with a fun question.
Oh, a fun one that we could maybe lie about?
No, we're talking about that later, Vince.
Okay, all right.
Here's the fun question, and you need to be honest about it. What is a guilty pleasure of yours? Like, it could be something that you really enjoy, but you might be a little embarrassed to share. It could be a show, maybe it's a genre of movie, maybe it's a video game, maybe it's a hobby. Like, what is it? Guilty pleasure.
I love...
Kirsten, you just voiced the female perspective. Please don't tear this apart. Don't shred this.
Not everyone agrees with me on this. I love happy endings. I love chick flicks.
Mm-hmm.
I love predictability. And I think it's because so much in life is not predictable, and there are a lot of not happy endings in life that I really love movies that I know how it's going to end.
Because they're all the same.
I know. I love it. I can predict it. And I have been known more than a handful of times to read the ending of a book, and if I don't like the ending, I don't read the book.
That is absolutely true. She's done that with movies too. Like, we've gone to try to see a movie. She's like, I don't know what's going to happen here. So you need to read the back of the movie to tell me, or the book, and do some research and tell me if the horse dies or if the whatever. If so, I'm not going to watch it.
But that's part of the fun, isn't it?
No, it's not.
How's it going to end?
It's not fun at all for me because I get so emotionally invested into stories.
Yeah.
And so, like, when I was younger, I found myself praying for like the protagonist in a movie, and I was like, oh wait, this is a movie. And so I have a hard time maybe just living in a regular reality. So I like happy endings.
All right. Well, there you go.
That's a good one. What about you, Vince?
I would. This is a hard question for me. I don't think I have a lot of things that are guilty pleasures like that I would hide or that I would be embarrassed to say. But one, the heart behind this is the embarrassing part. I really like reading memoirs, or listening to, if I'm listening to a book, a memoir. And people are like, oh, that's not embarrassing. No, that's not. But here's why. Because I like to read memoirs that are dark, like this person came through a really hard time in life, and because it gives me a sense of like, hey, I'm not that bad. So I like reading those. I'm like, wow, they went through a lot. They messed up a lot. You should have seen that coming. I wouldn't have done that. So it does give me this little sense of like, hey, I want to read more about messed up people to make myself feel a little bit better about me.
There's Vince's guilty pleasure for you.
There you go.
Yeah. For me, it's probably once in a while I like to probably spend too much time playing a video game. Probably. Well, okay. So here's context.
Okay, let's go here.
When I was growing up, so I was in high school in the 90s. Video games were a lot of fun, but it was a little more. What's the word? Like a little more. It had a certain connotation to it. it wasn't as mainstream. It wasn't like as accepted. It was like you're really wasting your time if you play a video game. It's not that way anymore for some reason. Probably because the people like me grew up. So in college, I didn't have any video game consoles all the way until about 2 years ago because I don't have self-control. Often when I play video games, it's too much time. So we got a Switch, and so I've started to play Zelda. And so sometimes I spend time playing Zelda by myself in a dark room, like before bedtime.
How much? Okay, let's be honest. How much time we talking here?
Sometimes it's only an hour and a half or so, but Zelda's one of those games where time kind of goes out the window. And so there have been times I've been up much too late playing that. And then you stop.
Like 8:30? Eric,
No.
Staying up till 8:30?
Anything after midnight is much too late for me. And so you'll look at the watch or the clock when you get done playing, and that's where I feel it. Like, I'm embarrassed. That was a guilty pleasure of sorts. I'm going to regret that tomorrow.
Huh. All right.
Okay. So maybe we'll just do this question every week. I bet we can come up with stuff every week.
It's just like public confession is what it is.
Feel better. All right. Vince, would you give us a recap from the text today?
Yeah, I don't know how to follow that, but I'll do it. Zelda to a recap on the passage. Yeah, so Jesus, again, in this list of laws that he's giving, anger, lust, divorce, we get to oaths, which I think if you just look at the heading in our English Bibles, oaths, we may skip over that because it's, what is that? What does that mean? So you have to look at what Jesus is really getting at, the heart of it. And so he states the law, at least the law that the people know and have heard has been passed down. You've heard that it said, you shall not swear falsely. And then he takes it to the next step, to the heart, and says, but I say to you, do not take an oath at all. And again, really what he's getting at is not that we should not ever take oaths. It's that we ought to be trustworthy. We need to be in a place where oath or no oath, contract or no contract, our word is our word, which is why he ends that section is with let your yes be yes, just very simply yes or no. So anyway, that's the recap. Pretty simple.
So the heart issue is trustworthiness.
Yep.
So we can be believable when we just say yes or no without having to promise everything. So here's my first question then. For you personally, what fronts or what areas of your life do you feel the temptation to be dishonest or to fudge a little bit or exaggerate? You gave some examples today, Vince. Maybe to be a little duplicitous. Are there things that come to mind right away, areas in your life you're tempted to this?
Yeah, I think we should define quickly, or not define, but just talk through quickly that our deceit or our deception isn't necessarily always in words, right? It may not be that, I said to you, whatever, I own a house, on an island. Oh, that's a lie. But it may be something that we're doing that's not in words. We're living a standard, we're living a different kind of life in front of people than we are in other places. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you have an example?
Well, I mean, I think it's not just saying one thing and lying, but it's saying one thing and thinking another. It's saying one thing and doing another. Like it's not, it's what flows out of our hearts and what we are on the inside. So it's not necessarily just words, but it's how we're living our life. And so like for me, an example would be, I've always struggled with being a people pleaser. And so there have been many times that I've said yes to someone, or I've tried to act like I am someone that I'm not in order to earn the praise or approval of somebody. And so, in that sense, I'm not living consistently with what I am on the inside, because what I am on the inside might be like lacking confidence or insecure, but I come across as a different way in order to try to garner the praise and approval of people. That's what I mean.
That's what I mean by, that's not a spoken lie necessarily. Mm-hmm. It's the living out of deceit. Mm-hmm. So she may be like, just to use your example, I'm not putting this on you, that you said this. She may be living with a lack of confidence in some area, but she can get to that place and present herself as really confident to try to make people believe that it's something different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so is one way to think about it that the heart issue Jesus is dealing with is if you are even presenting yourself in a way that's not trustworthy. So if I saw that, like Kirsten's confidence in some meeting, that's a presentation of something that's not, I don't know, accurate, true to reality. But then at the same time...
I don't know that I'd call that a sin issue necessarily.
Yeah.
So it does, I mean, it does, I think, come down to words, and it's not, step in.
What's coming to mind is like if someone says, "Hey, I'd love to get coffee," and I say, "Oh, that's great. I'd love to, but I'm going to be out of town."
Yeah.
And really the reality is like, I have no desire to get coffee with this person. I am going to be out of town, but in order to please them, in order to be kind, in order to try to make them think something nice about me, like she was so nice about that. The lie is that I'd love to,
right?
You know, whereas I could probably say, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that, or I don't know that that's going to work out. But my pleaser in me wants them to think highly of me, wants them to think that I am kind, wants them to think certain things about me that are not necessarily always true. And so I respond in a way, you don't want to be rude about it. I don't want to say, yeah, I have no desire to get coffee with you. Like, I don't want to be rude about it. But at the same time, it's not completely true that I would love to, because I actually wouldn't love to.
Right.
It might be true that I'm out of town, but so shaping my responses in such a way that makes me look good, and also tries to not hurt the other person. And so it's more about, my concern is more about myself and my persona than it is about actually holding to what is true. Yeah.
Man, that there's so much change that needs to occur as I think about my own heart. I mean, I think a lot of those things would just roll out of our mouths without even thinking about it. I think I would probably say, yeah, I'd love to sometime. And I'd say that without actually even thinking about it. And really, I would not love to, right? But so it just rolls out. So I think to answer your question, sorry, I took us on a little bit of a detour there. To answer your question, I voiced some of them this morning, but the one that stands out to me most is, for me, we like to soften this, right? Sanitize it, embellish a story. That sounds better than lie. But, I like to tell a good story. And there are times whenever I'll, say things about a certain thing that happened, and it's building a case for the story that I'm trying to tell.
Yeah, I mean, mine is similar to both of yours. I very rarely, remember, I'm a rule follower. I very rarely is just going to straight out lie about something. But often it is those other grayish, maybe gray isn't the right way to think about it, but either embellishing a story or presenting myself in such a way that I know isn't really accurate to reality of who I am or how that thing went or how I succeeded at something when really it wasn't quite that way. Or like you're saying, Kirsten, I think often I'm overly concerned about how somebody's going to feel, or how it's going to reflect back on me, or the relationship in some way. And so I want to ask a follow-up question to that. I think this is probably where a lot of people feel this tension with honesty. And are we saying what is true? Like just on face value, are we saying what is true? How do we think about this when we are interacting with people where the truth may hurt in various ways? Mm-hmm. I mean, you use the example today, Vince, like, do these jeans make me look fat, right? That's an example, but there are examples.
By the way, they don't, Eric.
Thank you.
You look good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Appreciate that.
I'd love to get coffee sometime.
No, you wouldn't.
Yeah, that's true.
But there's lots of examples of this, isn't there? And I can also see the another ditch where people can take this honesty thing and say, well, it doesn't matter how you feel about it, I'm just being honest, right? Then it becomes an excuse where I can say whatever I want to, don't care how you feel, with the excuse I'm just being honest. So let's talk about honesty, this heart issue of trustworthiness actually in relationships and some of these trickier conversations.
Well, I mean, I think we have to start with Scripture. And Ephesians 4:15 says that we're to speak the truth in love. And so those two can't be divorced. And so if we're speaking the truth and we're just telling the truth, but we don't have love in mind, we're not thinking, how am I loving this person? How can I care for this person? Then it's not actually truth. And if we're trying to love somebody, but we're not loving them with the truth, then it's not actually love. And so it's finding that balance. It's striking a balance of being truth tellers, of speaking the truth, and yet doing it with love, and understanding that sometimes love requires us to speak hard things. And at the same time, sometimes telling the truth requires us to actually remain silent on things because we're trying to love the person where they're at. And so it's really being sensitive to the Spirit and being led by the Spirit, and also being reminded that we're not the Spirit, that we can't change somebody. And so if we're only trying to get our point across, and if we're only trying to be heard, then chances are we're not speaking the truth in love. We're most concerned about speaking the truth, but without love, it's actually a noisy gong.
Yeah, I wonder, that's good, that's helpful. I wonder if a specific example might be helpful. Like if we played out kind of a case study on what that looked like. I really hesitate to do those because I feel, I mentioned it in the sermon, like the one about, if you know that someone needs encouragement, you say things that may not be true. Mm-hmm. I hesitate to use examples like that because I don't want people who are listening to think, oh, he's talking about me. I remember the time where he said this to me. So I want to be careful there. But we'll just go with the one you mentioned because we've all, everybody's probably had this, where somebody has said, hey, I'd love to grab coffee sometime. How do we, if we have no desire to grab coffee and it won't work out and we're not going to do it, what's the best way to handle that situation? Does that make sense? Like to get at your question, how do we, let's talk through that.
Well, I think it's complicated because it starts with the heart. You know, for me, it's why don't I want to get coffee? Am I being selfish with my time? Am I not willing to love this person? Am I not willing to step outside of my comfort zone? For me, it starts with the heart and what's really going on there. And then step beyond that. And usually it's some root of selfishness for me. It's some sense of like, I just don't really want to give my time. And so in that sense, then I need to really examine my heart and consider, okay, could I give some here? What would Jesus do in this situation? How could I love this person? But if it's somebody that I really have no intention of ever getting together with, I'm not very good at that. I try to deflect. I think I don't know how to answer that. I don't know what to say. And so rather than just saying, I'm probably never going to do that because I think I would offend them. I try to create excuses or build a case for why I just can't make it. And that's not honest. Yeah.
I think that's what I'm getting at is it's hard. I like that you answered first because then we can just put all this on you. It's hard to say. It's hard to say things well, and I mean, the most honest thing would be to say, I don't really. So okay, let me go without love. I don't really have a desire to get coffee with you. That would be truth, but that's not loving. So how do you speak truth and also love? That's where it gets tricky. And often what we do, this is what you were saying, I'm restating it. What we do is when we try to love, we say things that aren't necessarily true. So somehow we've got to be able to get to this place of doing both, which is what Jesus is calling us to, is this heart, the heart underneath it. Why would we not say to that person, right now, I'm not in a season where having coffee with you is going to be the best thing for the next several weeks. I mean, and say that in some loving way. I don't know what that is. I don't have any idea. Eric, fill in where that would be loving.
I think there could be something good about making it a season sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because maybe in a year or 2 or 3 or 5 years, it actually does change, right?
Right.
And so there are factors involved in all of our yeses in a particular season that the person asking can't possibly know. I think there can be some respect there rather than being, I just don't want to ever get together with you, which might be true in the moment, but we also don't know that could change over time. So I think it could still be completely honest, and you could still be a trustworthy person to say, and the season's not a good season right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's good. It just gets tricky when we care for people, each of us, we all do, our listeners too. We care for people and we want to show our care, and often we show our care through the words that we say, but it gets hard whenever the words that we say may not show the kind of care that person is needing at the time from our perspective. By the way, I should throw this disclaimer in there. We have no one in mind whenever we're talking through these things. So if you'd like to get coffee sometime, please let us know, and we will let our no be no. Is that what? No, wait, no. And our yes be yes.
I think one thing I want to touch on here before we talk about anymore is the big reason why this is important and why Jesus hits on this in the first place. That we as Christians are mirroring, or we are representing the God of the universe to a world that largely doesn't know him. And so our trustworthiness is a reflection of our God. And so our lack of trustworthiness is us not representing our good God well. Right. Which is the underlying big picture thing underneath a lot of this. Because just like you said, Vince, today, it can be easy to get really, really legalistic about any of these things here in Matthew 5 and 6. And the point is not, did you tell a white lie or not? It's actually much deeper than that, is what kind of picture what kind of picture of God are you displaying? Yeah.
I think it's interesting when you consider where this is that Jesus has just done some really heavy hitting with lust and with anger and with divorce and with murder. And then next in line are oaths. And so it in my mind, what it plays like is, well, sure, I haven't murdered anybody. Sure, I haven't divorced my husband. And oaths feels kind of like a downhill slant. And yet at the same time, I think Jesus is almost ramping up. And so understanding like the weightiness of this, that it's not just that Jesus did two heavy hitting ones and now he's doing a light one in order to give everybody a chance to breathe, but that being a trustworthy person and being a person of integrity is as important as being someone who is not lusting after people, as being someone that doesn't hold on to anger. And so like as I read through this one, it felt like this one's not hard for me. Like I keep my promises. I think people know that I'm trustworthy. But then when I look below the surface and I just think, well, at times though, Kirsten, you are duplicitous, that you want to give off this certain persona. And so, I mean, for years and years and years, I wanted to give off the picture that I had everything together. I was competent. I was confident. And so it's really become a discipline for me of naming the things that I'm really bad at and naming the areas that I'm struggling and trying to be genuine when I tell how I'm doing, because I am so drawn to being a picture of, in my mind, what is pulled together and what's good. And so, but kind of like a frog that's in a pot of water that's just slowly heated up and he's sitting in what's actually going to kill him, sitting in that kind of duplicity was actually bringing death to my soul. And so it's a discipline of living in a way that is more vulnerable and being intentional about that, so that it's for myself fighting against what I'm naturally drawn towards.
Yeah, I think the thing that comes to my mind, I meant to mention this morning, is that this application of this takes a ton of humility. And getting back to what you said, Eric, knowing that God is the focus. So when we understand that all of this is in reflection of who God is, and all of it is in honor of Him, it's put back on worship of Him, then who cares what people think of me? And so I think whenever we do begin to think, or when we do begin to care what people think of us in such a way that leads us to be deceptive, we're pushing God aside and His honor aside for our own honor. So getting back to that heart question or that heart issue of what you were saying, I think is the most helpful piece about it. It brings us to a place of humility. Who cares if I have to own up to the fact that my parents needed another car and it was a Maverick, right? I mean, as a silly example, but who cares? If God is the focus of what our attention is on, who cares what people think of me?
Yeah, and that should be reason that's sufficient enough to give any sort of weight to this that we could possibly need or want.
Should.
Yeah, it
There's
should.
the should.
But then even on top of that, you mentioned this, Kirsten, it's even for our good, isn't it? So it's not just as if I should say the word just. It's not just for the glory of God and how we are representing him in this world, but it's for the good of us too. A white lie is death. In the end, is death. That's a distortion. Deception is slowly killing us. So it is not only for the glory of God, but also our good.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and God won't be mocked, and so I think that when we tell a white lie, or when we sanitize things, or when we present ourselves in a way that is inconsistent with who we actually are in order to kind of garner the praise of people, like we may see that as just a tiny little piece of sand, but those pieces of sand start to build up. And we were at the sand dunes this summer, and I read about the history and what happened with the sand dunes. And it all started, they think, because rocks are broken down upstream, and then that stream comes down and breaks down all the sand, and then breaks down all the rock into sand, and then it blows it into the sand dunes. And that's how the sand dunes were created. And so if you think about all the lies and all the ways that we try to tailor our persona, and if they're all just little pieces of sand, it starts out as one or two little pieces of sand, and before long, we have the equivalent of the sand dunes, that they just are blown and all those things pile up. And so we think that it's not a big deal if they're just one little thing here or there. But again, if we're swimming in that hot water, all of a sudden we're being boiled to death and we don't even realize it.
Yeah, that's good. The verse that came to mind in that, James 4:10, where he says, "Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will exalt you." I think that's the key to this, is that our role, the active verb there is humble yourself. So our role is to humble ourselves. And I think if we're humbling ourselves, there's not a need to deceive there, right? I'm not trying to play this up. I'm not trying to promote anything. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will exalt you. When we're trusting God to be the one who's promoting us, or the one who's, whatever that looks like, exalting us, then a lot of this is easy to let go of. There's not a need to present, to people please, to promote ourselves, say things we don't need to say. So.
Well, and add to that, God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble, so that as we do humble ourselves, God gives us grace to continue to do that. And so it's just repeatedly humbling ourselves and trusting that God's going to provide the grace we need to continue on with that. And I think, speaking from my own experience, I used to be very proud and very arrogant and really struggled to humble myself. And the Lord did a lot over the last 25, 30 years to humble me. And the longer I've been working on trying to have a posture of humility, the easier it becomes, because God just gives you grace to do that. And it ends up being easier than holding up a certain persona and trying to come across as a certain way, because God's giving grace in those moments to live a life that is more humble.
Yeah, so it seems like there's a lot of different tensions here. One is, like you mentioned, Vince, a preserve, protect. What was the other P?
Promote.
Promote self as a motive of why we often will fudge with the truth or be dishonest. Sometimes we do it because we're trying to save face with somebody else, or not make them hurt, their feelings hurt. Sometimes we'll say yes or no because we haven't actually thought about whether we should say yes or no to something. Like if I'm going to commit to something, maybe commitment is a word here too. If I'm going to commit to something, say yes to something, I don't do it. Jesus is really clear. That is a lack of trustworthiness then. So maybe some more discerning before I say yes or no.
Yeah.
Or at least before I say yes for sure. It's probably in line here. It seems like this one, it's just a couple of verses, but it seems like it goes in lots and lots of different directions.
Yeah.
All boiling back down to trustworthiness. It spills out in our lives in all kinds of different ways.
I think often a lack of commitment, though, is evidence of a heart that's seeking its own pleasures rather than the pleasures of God. like things that come to mind would maybe be when a couple doesn't want to commit to marriage, but they just want to live together. And so they're not willing to take the risk of commitment, and yet they want all the benefits that come with marriage. Or even maybe someone who is not committed to a church. They want to go, but they want to leave their options open so that they can then leave if things end up going a way that they don't like, or they're called to something that they don't like.
When things don't go the way they want, right?
Not if.
When things.
Yeah.
And so I think the world says that self-fulfillment comes before truth, that you need to be self-fulfilled, and then that's what truth will be, seeking your own truth. But as Christians, we would say we have to say that truth comes before self-fulfillment, and you can't actually have self-fulfillment without truth. And so what truth is committing to things. It's owning things as your own, and saying, as a Christian, saying, no matter what comes, I'm going to cling to the truth of God's word. I'm committed to that. And so come hell or high water, that's what I'm going to claim as true. And I'm committed to that. And I think we have to grab onto things that are true in order to be able to hold on to oaths, in order to be trustworthy people, to be people of integrity.
Yeah. I think for me, the way that the Spirit brought to mind places of conviction for me, as I thought even deeper about those places of conviction, about why, dug down deeper into the root of those things, I think all of them came to a place of me in some way wanting to promote me. I think that's probably the primary one. I don't think I have anything to preserve or protect, but to promote. And so I don't know, it got ugly as I continued to think through all of the ways that I build up a story or leave out details of a story and all of that, and then began to think through, as the Spirit brought those things to mind, why do I do that? It was about me. And I think that's what, again, going back to what you said earlier, Eric, when we know that it's all about the honor and glory and worship of God, it gets even more disgusting to think about. That what I'm wanting most here in me telling this story, or me saying this or that thing, is for me to be seen.
Yeah, I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit. I'm thinking through Jesus or just God throughout the Bible. I'm trying to think of an example. He gives lots of promises. God gives us promises. He gives us reminders of his promises, like a rainbow and that sort of thing. But can you think of any examples, biblical examples, where God has to do an oath like what we do, like trying to convince somebody or manipulate somebody into believing that we really mean what we say?
I mean, he gave an oath to Abraham in Genesis. I mean, he gave a covenant. A covenant is an oath. And God said, this is what I'm going to do. This is my covenant with you. And so I think God has used that, and then he's shown himself to be faithful in those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's not... I'd have to think about it. I'm not going to be as quick to answer. My brain's kind of mushy right now. But if and when he does make promises, mm-hmm. he always keeps them, mm-hmm. or will always keep them. Some of them are yet to be kept, mm-hmm. right? And that's the tension we live in. But he will always keep them, which shows his trustworthiness. Mm-hmm. I think, sorry to drop this one, I think Jesus is the greatest fulfillment of the commitment that God has made from the garden, that he said there will be one who comes who will crush the head of this serpent. Mm-hmm. And he did.
And Jesus was fully honest, fully trustworthy, and we see him interact with some really, really broken, hurting people. He's never a jerk about it. Like, I'm just being honest. And yet he's still fully honest. Yeah. And depending on the relationship, his words were different. His words were very different for the Pharisees, weren't they? Yeah. And so I guess what I'm thinking is that the practical application of this, which we're wrestling with, is different for different people depending on your situations, that it takes some discernment, some real discernment on how do I be honest and loving, like you said, Kirsten, the truth and love in this particular situation, whatever it is.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the encouragement in all of this is that it's not our record, but it's our willingness to repent. And what I mean by that is looking at Matthew 21 with the parable of the two sons. And the father says to the one son, will you go out and work in the field? And then the son says, yes, I will. And he doesn't go. And then he says to the other son, will you go out and work in the field? And the son says, no, I won't. And then he changes his mind and he goes out and he works. And Jesus says, which of these sons honored his father? And it was the son who said no, but then changed his mind and went and honored him. So he repented. And so I think we can be encouraged in knowing that even if we have not been one who's trustworthy, even if we have been one who has consistently not been known to tell the truth, or maybe is duplicitous in our personality, that we can repent from that, and that God will be pleased with that repentance, and that we can then move forward in being trustworthy and being one who's known for being honest. So it's not just that if you've always been this way, it's just how you are, but there's repentance and there's forgiveness in that.
Yeah, which ironically, I know this is a step a little bit removed from what we looked at in our passage, but ironically, it starts with being honest with ourselves to an extent, doesn't it? Or listening to the Spirit as Spirit shows us more. Like, am I actually dishonest? Well, to come to that conclusion, I need to be pretty honest with myself.
I think honest with yourself, and then also inviting people into that. Once again, I mean, we hit this almost every week, but the importance of Christian community and the importance of having people in your life that know you, and having the courage to ask them, like, am I the same person? Do you see me as the same person at home as you see me in my job, as you see me at church, as you see me in community? Do you see me being a different person, or do you see me being consistent? Like, I want to know that. And are there areas that you see that I'm trying to, from your perspective, put on a show or be somebody that I'm not? And that's a scary question to ask.
Yeah. Yeah, let's not ask that one. Don't ask that one, Eric.
Yeah, that's helpful. Our two listeners are probably in different places, and so this hits differently. And for some, this is really convicting right now. For some, it might be convicting later. But the truth of the gospel, I think we need to be reminded of that. Yeah. And Kirsten, you started that. Vince, what will it take if I'm in a place I hear this is deeply convicting? Maybe I even my self-esteem is like in an unhealthy way, really low right now.
Yeah.
What's this going to take?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a ton of courage. It's going to take the work of the Spirit in you, and your receptivity to the work of the Spirit. It's going to take some courage. And what's hard about that is, I mean, just a silly example about, how lies have been promoted with the show Survivor. But, and we know this in life too, you begin to tell a lie to move in a certain direction, and you have to uphold that lie, and sometimes even build other lies around it. And you can get to a place, I can get to a place then of having to keep something going in such a way that the unraveling of that's going to take a ton of courage, a ton of humility. And so I guess that's my encouragement to those who may be listening, is if you're in a place of dishonesty, whatever that looks like, it can be something that's small in your mind or big in your mind. If you're in a place of dishonesty, what it's going to take is your being receptive to the Spirit and the Spirit's nudging of you to confess that. It's going to take a ton of courage, not a ton of courage to confess that to God, because we know that God is forgiving. We know that God receives us as a Father who has compassion on us. It takes a ton of courage to go to someone else who we've lied to or sinned against in that way, to confess that, knowing that not all humans will receive us as a father with compassion. There may be some backlash. There may be some real hurt and pain. There probably will be. And so it will take a lot of courage to do that. But my encouragement would be to plead with God to give you the kind of humility it's going to take to do that, and the kind of courage it's going to take to step forward in that, to confess, to ask for forgiveness, and then to look for help, either from both from other people who are going to walk with you, and seeking God's help to turn. So that'd be my encouragement to us. And this is a trap. I mean, I think the reason we've sort of zigged and zagged all over this conversation is because it goes in so many different directions, and it attaches to our hearts, and our hearts are deceptive, and we want people to think highly of us, and we'll do whatever it takes to get there. And so often that means deceit. So it's just layers and layers. But to come clean in that, I think you begin to feel the freedom of what Christ has already offered in forgiveness. You feel that burden lifted in confession.
Yeah, which I think, man, as I'm thinking about this as you're talking, where we lack trustworthiness, this is what we would need to confess to God and to others. It forces us to rely upon the trustworthiness of God with how that plays out, doesn't it? Because there may be broken relationships or different hurts and pains that come out. And so then the question becomes, do I really, really trust God with this? He's calling me to obedience in this. Do I trust God to go ahead and be honest and to be vulnerable, not knowing how all the pieces will play out?
Yeah, it's good.
All right, so where do you see God in this passage? How are your affections raised for our good God?
I think understanding that at surface value, this particular section didn't seem all that challenging, but as we dive deep into the surface and understanding that maybe more than the others, this one convicts me of just of the duplicity that's naturally in my heart, and that God has paid, even like Jesus never had a sideways thought. He never had a sinful intent. Like, he didn't try to promote himself ever. He didn't,
other than what was right.
Other than for God's glory, for his own glory, but he never did it sinfully. He never was trying to make much of himself instead of God. It was making much of himself for the glory of God. And so the fact that God gave Jesus to cover all of that and that Jesus accomplished it all perfectly is amazing.
Yeah, even when he had the opportunity, we're told that he did not retaliate. He didn't open his mouth. He could have, and he would have spoken truth, right? We know that because he wouldn't sin. But he could have taken an opportunity to build himself up in a way to put to shame the people who were scoffing and telling lies about him. And instead what I think it's Peter who says he entrusted himself to God who judges justly. So he entrusted all that to God.
Well, and what's interesting is you mentioned it in today's passage that Jesus responded to Caiaphas when he said, give an oath, but Jesus was silent up until that point. And so the only oath that he was willing to give was saying that he was indeed the Son of God. And so even in that, he didn't defend himself. He was only speaking what was true under an oath.
Yeah, I think for me, the thing that raises my affections for God is, I think we've said it multiple times already, is that all of the ways that I lack here, God is perfect in the opposite way. The ways that I am not trustworthy, God is fully. The ways that I would want to, even my own heart is deceptive and want to promote, God is completely trustworthy. I think that's what this pushes me to, especially this week as the Spirit has brought to mind some areas where I have failed here, fallen into this. It's good to know that he is trustworthy.
Yeah, his yes is always yes.
Yep.
Every single time. His no is always no.
And his yes always finds its completion in Christ.
Yeah. And we're still in the middle of it to some degree, aren't we?
Yep.
There's still more yeses to be completed.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what raises my affections for him too, is sheer trustworthiness. Yeah. All right, well, thank you for listening to the AfterWord. We are going to be back next week with, what's the theme next week?
Yeah, just when you thought we were, like Kirsten, you said, on this downhill slope, we have retaliation and then love your enemies. So it's not, the hard-hitting punches are not finished yet.
Are you doing those two together, or are you separating them out?
That is a great question that I wish
we will find out next week.
The answer to right now. I had to look.
I have to look too.
Yep.
Thanks for listening. We love you all.
Yep, thanks.
Bye.